Hey everyone, welcome back to the Always Arsenal show, my very first summer season show, and what a guest we have tonight. The lovely, I don't know what to call you ever, Andrew Arseblog. It feels weird calling you Arseblog, so I'm going with Andrew. Welcome. That is your name. Welcome to the Always Arsenal summer season show number 1.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be guest number 1, a position of real privilege, sort of like Aaron Ramsdale of the Always Arsenal show, right?
I love that, Andrew. That's great. Yeah. For anyone, and I doubt there is anybody that doesn't know who you are in the Gooner Twitter universe or any universe that's involving Gooners, you are a writer, a podcaster, a voiceover, and a lover of the Arsenal, aren't you?
Yes, that's some of the many things that I am. Yeah. I've been doing Arseblog for over 20 years now. So it is a huge part of my life, sort of unexpected part of my life, because when I started, I never thought I'd be doing it 20 years later. That would have been ridiculous, but here we are. And, we have a global club now. I think, there's fans all over the world. And I think the one thing the internet has done is bring people together and closer as Arsenal fans. Maybe not always closer. Maybe there's some argy-bargy along the way, but I guess you can choose what you want to engage with and all that kind of stuff. But, it's great. There's a big, huge Arsenal community out there, and you're part of it. There's lots of podcasts, lots of blogs, and, I'm glad to be in there.
Well, it's interesting because I want to go back to the beginning. But first of all, welcome everyone to the show. Thank you for joining. I know it's a hot night. I know I'm not really into football. I've not watched one international game. I've switched off. And I don't like talking about transfers, but we will tonight. We're going to discuss them with Andrew. I'm going against everything I believe in, but thing is, Andrew, I don't talk about transfers until they're done. I don't deal with speculation. I'm bored with it. When they're signed, I'll have a whole long chat. But I think it's a lot of the chat room want that. Also, we're going to be asking you some questions. So,
okay.
People in the chat room, not yet. Don't throw your questions yet. I'll let you know when. Because I've got to go through a few things with Andrew first that I want to know, actually, because I don't know. So I'll just put this into perspective, Andrew. Yeah. My cousin is a few years older than us. Has been going to Arsenal few years more than me. My dad took him, and that he's the guy I still go to football with. And he's not on social media. He doesn't have Twitter, Facebook, nothing. He's not interested. The only thing he ever reads is Arseblog.
Oh, cool.
No word of a lie. I know him through you. I know you through him. Years and years and years ago, before social media, I said to him, what's that? And he said, oh, it's a blog by Arseblog. I said, who's Arseblog? And he said, well, it's this Arsenal, sort of report, and you read it every day. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. There was nothing else, Andrew, was there? There was nothing. Not online that I would have ever known. But I used to read the Gooner, and I used to read 2-1 up. I can't 1-0 down, 2-1 up. Yeah, they used to sell it outside Highbury, and it was very funny and stuff like that. To this day, he still hasn't got social media. He's not interested in any of it, and he still reads your blog.
That is great. I mean, I think it was maybe the first blog, but there were definitely, Arsenal websites out there when I was setting it up, because there was Arseweb. There was one called Arsenal World. There was a site called Boring Arsenal. Oh, and there was a great site by a guy called, he called himself Red Geezer, I think. And he used to do these really, really funny match reports, which were hilarious. So there was a bit of stuff going on online for sure, but nothing regular. Like nobody was doing something every single day in the style of a blog, because back then blogs themselves were kind of new. They were just emerging. So I mean, it's something people say is like the first thing I do every morning is, I'll read Arseblog on the toilet, and it's like, It is a compliment. It's a little too much information, but it's definitely a compliment.
So take us back to the beginning. As we discussed, we're both in our 50s. I'm 53 next month. I don't even feel 23. It's bizarre, but anyway. Take us back to why. Okay, take us back to how you support Arsenal. What's the reason? Because obviously you're over in Ireland, aren't you? And then how this started.
Well, I was born in England, so I grew up in England for the first 10 years of my life. So I was born in Croydon, and my dad was in the bar hotel trade. So he worked around London, and we moved from London to York, and then to a place a little while outside of Hull. He was a manager of a hotel there. And I was just football mad, absolutely loved football, loved playing football, Roy of the Rovers, Shoot magazine, everything I could get my hands on. And I don't ever remember making a conscious decision to support Arsenal. But at that time in the 1970s, as I'm sure you remember, Arsenal had a lot of Irish players. And we were, like, my folks were both Irish. And they came to England as many people did back in the 50s and 60s for work. And me and my brother were born over there, but we were Irish. We were brought up. You are Irish, even though you were born here and you're living here, you're Irish. And at that time, Arsenal had Liam Brady, they had Frank Stapleton, they had David O'Leary, they had John Devine. They also had Pat Jennings, Pat Rice, Sammy Nelson from Northern Ireland. And I was too young really to understand what the difference was between the Republic of Ireland and and Northern Ireland. It was just green. They were Ireland as far as I was concerned. And maybe that's a contentious thing to say as you get a bit older and you become aware of the political situation. But I'm absolutely convinced that that's what it was. It was that connection to Ireland plus football equals Arsenal. I don't really know how to describe it. I think that's what it was. Like, I don't remember exactly why, but that's my guess as to why that happened. Just a football mad kid, and I saw all these Irish players and identified pretty strongly with them.
Yeah, definitely Irish in the 70s, definitely, because that's when I started. My dad's favourite player was Chippy Brady, so I was brought up on that. There was a massive Irish contingency. John Devine honestly give me nightmares when you said his name, and David O'Leary, and of course all that. Okay, so you're growing up, you're an Arsenal fan, you're living in Ireland. Teenage years weren't easy, were they, supporting Arsenal? We were absolutely terrible up to 1986. I was at school between 1980 and 85 with all Spurs fans, so I didn't get a chance to get my own back at any point because I'd left school. Growing up, I was in an area of Tottenham, West Ham, no one else really, Arsenal. So there was us. But obviously that wasn't the case for you, was it?
No, I mean, pretty much everybody in Ireland follows an English football team. Well, not everybody, but I mean, it's very common for every football fan you meet here to follow an English team of some description. Obviously, Celtic is a very big team here as well. People support their local teams, but the League of Ireland is not necessarily the greatest league. So everybody has an interest in English football. And traditionally, the two big clubs here are Liverpool and Manchester United. Liverpool, obviously, because of how close it is and how many Irish people went to Liverpool and ended up in Liverpool, and you've the Irish families all over, and similarly Manchester. But I think as well, there were some Irish players at Manchester United. John Giles, who's a very famous Irish player, and people connected, I think, in that way with Man United. They were a very successful club as well. When you think they won the European Cup back in the 60s and everything else. So, it's different. That local thing obviously is missing from my fan experience that you guys have when you're over there, and you can go to games and it doesn't involve, booking flights and staying in hotels and all those kinds of things. But, I think that's what's been really interesting about Arseblog over the years, is that people's experience nobody is saying, or certainly I've never said, like, that my experience is going to be the same as somebody who lives on the Holloway Road. It's just not. That's not how it works, and never would be how it works. So you can't set yourself up to say, I'm the same as you. It doesn't mean it's different or better or whatever, but it's different. And I think one of the great things about having this global fan base now is people are embracing the fact that fans have different experiences and experience the club and go through all the emotions in a different way. You could have guys who've, watched us win the FA Cup recently, but are basically sitting somewhere on their own because they don't have any Arsenal friends around them. That's a different experience from, let's say, being in the stadium or being able to celebrate with friends or all the thousands of people that end up back in North London on a night when we win the FA Cup, and it's amazing, So that experience of it was certainly different. And I don't know that the bragging rights are quite the same,
Sorry, Andrew, I've never really understood that, because I don't live on the Holloway Road, so my experience would be different. I live 40 minutes from Arsenal. Yeah. But the guy I was telling you about, my other cousin, his brother, who was with us at Anfield 89 and the cup finals, emigrated to Perth in Australia. And he gets up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning to watch Arsenal. So who says who's, this super fan, better fan? I don't go all the away games. I've got a season ticket at home, but I've never understood this. And honestly, Andrew, my dad, to me, is the biggest Gooner on the planet. Yet he stopped going 5 years ago. He had a season ticket since the 60s. Too old, too much money. The club didn't look after him. And he thought, you know what? It's too much. He's in his 70s, yeah?
Yeah.
No one would ever beat him in my eyes. There's so many stories about him, Andrew. And, so just because you're in Ireland or someone's in Australia or someone's in Africa or America, I've never understood people that go, oh, they don't have a right to have an opinion.
No, I completely with you. I mean, look, I'm an Irish guy who set up a blog about Arsenal while I was living in Spain and then came back to Ireland, so I'm in no position to tell anybody anything. And I think the inclusivity is really important, being inclusive to fans wherever they're from, is just a really important part of being, like, one of the great things about football, and we all are invested in the matches, and we all want Arsenal to win and want Arsenal to do well, but the community aspect of it, like, if you win a game, it's great, you go have a couple of pints with your mates afterwards and whatever. If you lose, you still go and have a couple of pints with your mates, and you're a bit downhearted, but you talk it out and it's good. And I think that aspect of things is really one of the best things about Arsenal and one of the best things about football. And for some people who are lucky enough to be able to come to games, they experience it, and they, to a man and woman, they absolutely love it. When I meet people over at games and you meet people going, we're from the States, this is our first time ever coming, and they're just sort of looking around at what's going on, like a packed pub and everyone's singing, and it's just an experience, So I think however people can connect with that is really important, in my opinion. And for a lot of people, it's just always going to be distant. It's always going to be online, but they can still be part of it.
Oh, absolutely. So when I went to New York about 5 years ago, it was the Crystal Palace away game where Bellerin went to the Arsenal fans and they all started rowing. Do you remember? We were awful, yeah. So I was in a pub again. It was a Monday night, but it was a Monday afternoon for Americans. And I watched it with some Americans. This pub in New York is dressed in Arsenal stuff, tops of Thierry Henry, everything. I walked in and I felt weird. I felt like I don't deserve to be in here. I know it sounds a weird thing. I just felt, and it was lovely. Lots of people from Twitter came to say hello and watch the game, and it was the most awful game, obviously, we experienced. Yeah. But they're obsessed. The Americans, the Africans, the Australians, and I absolutely love it. I'm sorry, I'm not missing out any countries on purpose, but and Andrew, it only dawned on me about 10, 12 years ago when I joined Twitter. I didn't really understand Twitter. One of my friends said, join Twitter, you'll love the banter. I thought it was full of famous people. And I had a few hundred followers, and it was brilliant. People that you could banter with and, moan about stuff and stuff like that. And I only realized when people used to say to me, and obviously I started going on podcasts only about a year later, "You're so lucky, Amanda. I've never seen an Arsenal match live. I've seen thousands and thousands. I've been going since the 70s. And sometimes I'd moan, Andrew, if I've got work and I'm going to be late, or, oh, I can't be bothered to go tonight. I never missed a match for that reason. But sometimes, Saturday, and then we got Wednesday and Saturday. Oh, it's too much. I've got a life, I stopped all that. The minute I realised how lucky I am, not only to have a season ticket, move from Highbury and still be in the East Stand. And I don't take it for granted anymore. A boring match. I remember the Burnley match last year, 0-0. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. But I walked out there and thought there would be people desperate to watch a live match, a terrible live match from the midst of New Zealand or wherever, Russia, wherever they are, and never will. They probably never will get to the Emirates. So when people do come from abroad and tell me they're coming from abroad, wherever, I always make a conscious effort to meet them outside. And I want them to experience, the armory and the pubs and meet with people, because I took it all for granted. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's nice, but I mean, it is, this is what I'm talking about. Your experience is different.
Yeah.
It's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is all relative. And, I'm sure that you've got every right sometimes, if a game has been terrible, if life is difficult, if work is a pain in the backside, whatever it is, we all have our days where you don't feel like doing things or whatever, but that's what it is. Nice to have that realization and like, yeah, it is a fortunate thing, to be able to go every week and experience the ups and downs of it and see it in a different way. And that's the thing about live games, is that you see football in a different way than when you watch it online, and when your experience of the game is being influenced by the commentators, by what people are saying on Twitter, all that kind of stuff. There are times you can come out of a game and have a completely different view on something than somebody who's watching on TV.
I was going to say that, actually. That's happened so many times where I think other people are watching a different game.
Yeah. But again, it's part of that is because I'm not saying they're being told what to think or that they're not capable of thinking for themselves, but you can hear it sometimes in a game. I'm not just talking about Arsenal here. You can hear it straight away. Let's say where the commentator or the co-commentator, they've got a little agenda. They've got something that they want to, get across, whether it's how good the home fans are, how bad the home fans are, how weak the opposition defense is, something like that. And they sort of hammer this home, and then that colors your perception of what it is you're seeing, because they're talking about it all the time, whether or not it's actually 100% accurate. So
no, I totally agree. So I've got quite a few questions coming up. I will ask you, but I want to know, okay, so what made you start Arseblog? And what a brilliant name, I have to say.
What made me start it was I was trying to learn how to do web design, because I'd moved to Spain and I got a little web design company, web hosting company, and I was trying to teach myself how to design websites. And I figured if I had a website of my own that I could practice on and do things and update regularly, I would learn pretty quickly. That's the best way to learn anything, isn't it? Is to do it.
Yeah.
So I'd been reading some blogs about just various things. It was just starting to bubble into the consciousness of the internet. And I thought, well, you know what, maybe I could do a blog about football, and actually I could do a blog about Arsenal, because, well, there's always something going on, isn't there? There's a match, or there's a transfer, or there's an injury, or there's whatever it is. There's, what football clubs are like, and football is like, there's pretty much always a story. So I said, I'll start a blog about Arsenal. And then I was thinking, well, what the hell will I call a blog about Arsenal? Arseblog. And that was it. I just bought the domain name, started writing, and I've written something pretty much every day for 20 years. every day. There was one or two very slight hiatus moments, and occasionally I will take a holiday, but the site keeps going. I've got guys like Andrew Allen and Tom who will fill in for me, so the blog keeps going. So it's been going every day for 20 years, rain or shine, hangover or not hangover, whatever it is. I get up and make coffee and I write something every day.
That's incredible. 20 years, nearly every day.
Mm.
So what do you find to write about from when the season ends? All right, maybe a couple of weeks before the season starts, but is it just transfer speculation, or are you looking at different factors at Arsenal?
I'll get up in the morning and I'll look around and see what news there is and see what's happening. And if there's something happening, then obviously, if there's a big story, that's what you write about that day. Like the day after a match, you write about the match. If there's a big scandal, then you write about the big scandal, whatever it is. But some mornings there aren't really. Some mornings there aren't really big stories, so you have to get a little bit creative. You have to think about things. You have to think about maybe things from a broader perspective, and try and analyze a situation at the club or whatever it might be. And then there's other days where there's just literally nothing happening in Arsenal, in football. So I'll find my way around that and write something else. And I do write about things that aren't just Arsenal. There are days obviously when there is nothing happening, so I'll write about something else. That we had a whole lockdown a couple of years ago, if you remember, where there was no anything. There was nothing, no football, no anything. But I kept going and kept writing about whatever. So it can be a little bit challenging, but it's also quite fulfilling as well. If you sit down in the morning and you're looking at your keyboard and you've got to write 1,000 words and there's nothing to write about, when you get to that point where you've finished the blog post, it's quite fulfilling, So I just let my mind wander and see where it goes. And at this point, it's just so ingrained in my morning routine that it would feel weird not to do it,
So I'm just going to bring a couple of questions in, then I want to go back to your podcasting with James and stuff. Right. Robert Stevens. Hi, Rob. Hello, Andrew. Do you have any conversations with the club about your blogs?
No, not really. I mean, I know that they know it, and obviously I've got to know some people in the club over the years. They're aware of, what we do on the website, what we do on the podcast and everything else. I mean, sometimes there is a little bit of communication, but it's not a case of like, don't write this, or we didn't like that, or why don't you write this? It's not that kind of thing at all. Just when you're doing something for 20 years about one specific football club, you get to know some people in there, and it's editorially independent. I think that's always been really important to me, that there is editorial independence. So I'm happy to talk to anyone. I'll listen and I'll hear whatever, but what I write and what I do on the website is always my own.
It's really interesting because I've been on pods for years, and we'll talk about your pod in a second. But since starting my own pod on the Same Old Arsenal channel here with Craig, since January, it's my show, Andrew. I can do what I want. It's so bizarre. I've always been part of a team or a guest, so I haven't been able to do that. And I remember having Alan Smith on. I've had quite some amazing guests the last few months. And just going back to the commentating, I sat there and said, come on now. There are times when even I listen to you and I can hear a slight bias against us. And he said, and it's true. He said, I can't win. If I praise Arsenal, I get accused of complete biasness. If I go against it, I'm the worst Arsenal player ever. He said, I honestly tell you, I say it as I see it. And I sat there and I thought, do you know what? I think he does. I've known Alan quite a while, and he's so genuine. But the amount of comments that were coming in lambasting him, and I don't think they can win. And you're right when you're talking about commentators with their agendas. Honestly, Andrew, I'm not one of these people that ever follows the crowd. So if everyone said Alan Smith had an agenda, I'd only believe it if I thought it. So I'm not one of these people that has to have, the 400 retweets or something.
Sure.
But the last few months, I am so angry with Gary Neville. I can't begin to tell you. Now, I don't know if he's angry because we finished above United, but the way he's gone for Arteta, it is bizarre in my head. Now, I wasn't going to bring this up, but it's interesting what you said about commentators. I've never thought anyone's got an agenda against us. Look, Jermaine Genius, none of us are going to like. He's ex-Tottenham. He's not really a great commentator and pundit in my eyes. I actually loved Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville, Monday Night Football. I don't have a problem with Liverpool at all. I've got a lot of Scouse mates, and I think they're a wonderful, wonderful club. I do. We're playing the most beautiful football. But it got too much in the end, and I started tweeting Gary Neville saying, you need to pipe down a little bit. I honestly was so angry. So agenda, I think he did, if I'm honest. You laughed as I said it. Is it a common thing that people are thinking lately, or do you think it as well?
I think so. But he's always been really annoying. Let's face it. Like when he was a player, he was really annoying, right? He was really annoying. And I think what maybe surprised people over the last couple of years was that he seemed to have a sort of common sense approach to punditry, and like I quite liked listening to him, but I agree with you that this season something clicked in there. I don't know what happened with his brain, but something went a bit skew ways. I remember when he was talking about our transfers last summer, and he said, I can't really see what Arsenal are trying to do. And it was like, well, they're buying players who are 21, 22, or 23. It's pretty obvious what that is. So, yeah, look, he has taken an annoying twist, but maybe we should, just leave him in the background.
It is bizarre. I don't normally go down this road. I've seen a lot of people say I've always liked him. I hated him as a player, and I loved him as a pundit. I thought he was really fair. Carragher does quite respect Arsenal, and that's fine. And I don't mind him slagging us off when we deserve it. I don't mind anyone doing that. I just felt it went a bit too far with him. But I'm getting a lot of people saying, and I don't know what they're talking about, something about Phil Collins. Is there something on your podcast everyone's saying about? Just tune in. And I thought Andrew was talking about Phil Collins again. No. Phil Collins, couldn't agree more with Andrew. Go on.
No, it's just sort of a running gag on the blog for the 20 years as to how much I dislike Phil Collins, and in particular that song In the Air Tonight. So every time Phil Collins does anything, I get like a load of people tweeting at me going, oh. So it's just really it is just a running gag, but I absolutely hate that song with all my life.
Oh, okay, so, I get that. Right, so I'm going to do a few more questions in a moment. Podcasting. So obviously it was the natural progression, wasn't it, to go into podcasting? Did you start alone?
Yeah, it started in 2006.
Oh, wow.
So it's been going a long time, this podcast. So because I sort of a background in radio, I used to be a radio DJ when I was younger, and that was kind of what I wanted to do with my life for a while, but it didn't happen in the end. But when I discovered podcasting, I was like, this is amazing, because it's basically your own radio show, and nobody's telling you what you can say. Nobody's telling you to play Phil Collins at 10 minutes past the hour and then play an ad break and then do the, because radio has become very formatted and all that kind of stuff. So I really just enjoyed talking to people about Arsenal. It was great. So yeah, that started, I think it was 2000 and I can't remember exactly when we started the Arsecast Extra. A few years later, anyway, maybe 2012. With James. So yeah, I mean, it's been going it'll be 16 years this year, the podcast. So
wow.
Yeah. So I guess it's one of the longest running podcasts out there. So but again, it's great. You just get to talk about Arsenal into a microphone, and people like to listen, and that's amazing to me. It's I always feel really happy and privileged that people tune in and like to download and like to listen, and try and give them a good show every week. It's not always happy, but then that part of it is out of my control. So
yeah, it's down to the team now. I hate doing
yeah,
post-game shows when we've lost. I just can't. But I book them and I book people to come on, so I have to do it. When we've won, it's amazing and I love it. But I had James on the show a couple of months ago and he was great. And with you two, I just see you as like Arsenal royalty. I love it. It's, you see, the thing is, I was talking to someone at work today about, how it works in the Arsenal world and who's who and who people look up to and generally who I enjoy listening to and watching too. He's a Tottenham fan and he's got his lot as well. And I said, it's so
yeah,
interesting with football that, absolutely you can disagree. I disagree with lots of people. I would never be abusive or anything like that. So have you come across that? Have you had abusive tweets over times or have you
sure.
had accusations that you're working for the club? I see that a lot with other people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you do get that kind of stuff, but like at the end of the day, it's just words on a screen, isn't it? I don't really think there's any point in engaging with anybody who's abusive online. I mean, they're not interested in a conversation, and they're not interested in your point of view, or they're not interested in really anything you have to say if they're just being abusive. So look, the great thing is about the internet and how big the Arsenal online community
Presence.
is that there is something for everyone. There's something for everyone. If you don't like the Arsecast, there are lots of other podcasts out there. If you don't like your show, there's lots of other, and why wouldn't they? I mean,
Oh, they
but
don't. Trust me, there are some.
but why, you've got loads of other stuff that you can watch. There's loads of other people streaming and making videos. You can just go out and pick and choose what it is you want to listen to, and nobody's forcing you to listen to anything else. Nobody says you have to agree with them. Nobody says is going to make you sit down every week and make you listen to the Arsecast. If you don't want to, just don't do it. And then you get on with your life and have a nice time, and I'll get on with my life and have a nice time, and everyone's happy. And I think that's the way you have to deal with stuff like
That's
this.
far too sensible. You know that, don't you? It's
Yeah,
like when people hate EastEnders, just don't watch BBC One at 7:30 on a
yeah.
Monday night then. Why do you have to moan about it? It's so true. I'll never forget. I saw someone on Twitter say, I'm looking forward to the show tonight, Amanda. And someone tweeted, I'd rather stick pins in my eyes. Well, the way I treat with people like that is complete humour and sarcasm. I never ever erupt, and it just shows them up for the
Mm,
idiots they are. Apparently, he'd never seen a show. He's never watched me online. He just doesn't like my tweets, and that's fine. You don't have to. I don't care. I'm
yeah.
not there to tweet for anybody else but myself. But
I mean, he could also
okay,
just not say that. You know what I mean? You could just not say that, because what is the point of it? What's the point of it? What does
listen.
anyone get out of that?
My mum has a saying, there's now a stranger's folk, and you
Yeah.
can't please everybody all of the time, just some of the people, some of the time. And I am so thankful for the people that watch this show and the guests that I've had on. Well,
Mm,
I honestly ask so many different people to come on, and they all say yes. And I think I've got such a little podcast. It's, thousands and thousands and thousands of people don't watch this show, but you're so right. Arsenal for everyone, wherever you want to watch,
mm.
whatever you want to do. You don't need to go and comment and be toxic. So there was a question here. Hello, Bulgarian Gooner. Thank you for joining us. So how do you deal with toxic fans on Twitter? You must get a few of them every time you tweet your opinion, which is why I said. So do you ignore? Do you joke back like I do?
Very rarely.
Yeah, you
Very
ignore.
rarely. For the most part, I would rather spend time talking to people who are interested in having a discussion. It doesn't mean you only want to talk to people who agree with you or whatever it is, but because you can learn a lot from disagreements. It's not to say that everything you all have to be singing from the same hymn sheet, but it's how you disagree, and it's how you speak to someone, and it's how you are willing to, like, you can tell by the way that someone replies to a tweet if they're just being an idiot. I don't really have time or energy for that, so I don't I don't reply, I don't engage, I ignore them, and I will because like, for example, after a match, if I tweet something, there's like hundreds of replies. I can't go through every single one of them, and I certainly I'm not gonna spend time on the one guy who's calling me names or thinks that what I said is absolutely stupid or ludicrous or wrong or whatever it is. Whereas if somebody is talking to you in good faith, I think that's a much more productive way of dealing with it. So for the most part, I just ignore.
And you know what, people, children out there, that is the most sensible thing to do. But there are just times where I have to go back and be sarcastic, just occasionally, just to show them up if they're being really abusive. But no, generally, I've learned that silence is golden and don't give them the oxygen. I didn't learn that when I first went on Arsenal Fan TV about 10 years ago, whenever it was. And the abuse I got, I used to like just quickly respond to everyone. I remember Robbie saying to me, Amanda, ignore them. That's what they want. And I realised after a while, because I was all new to all this, I was like, how dare they speak to me like that? I've not said But now I do generally laugh. But most of generally the followers and stuff, you know, we all get on great. Right, some more questions. I actually want to ask you something as well. Yes. You did a live pod, which I didn't even know about. And I'm so angry because I would have come to the chapel in Islington with, you did it with the Arsenal Vision Boys, my Clive.
Yeah.
I love my Clive. So how did that come about and how amazing was it?
It was incredible, to be honest. You know, myself and James have done some live shows before. We've done a couple in we did a couple in the garage. We did a couple actually upstairs in Union Chapel in the bar area. But I was talking to Elliot and we were thinking about doing something because we'd done the fundraiser in April for the Arsenal Foundation. We were just talking about doing a live event, and a guy who helped us put on some of the other live shows, I said to him, look, I know this is really last minute, but we're looking for a venue the last Saturday, you know, before the final game of the season. We were hoping it would be a big party night, obviously, but unfortunately that wasn't to be. But again, that was out of our hands. And he came back and said, yeah, Union Chapel. And I was thinking, the bar is a bit small. And he said, well, no, the whole thing. I was like, oh my God, there's no way we're going to sell that many tickets. But we did. And it was just genuinely a real thrill to meet so many people who listen to both podcasts, who wanted to come and enjoy a night of sort of Arsenal chat and everything else. So it was amazing though, walking out. And you've been in there, I assume you've been in the
I saw it advertised after with people in there, hundreds of people. It was completely packed out, wasn't it? Sold out.
Yeah, I think there was over 850 people in there, which is just astonishing. And to walk out and just see all those people, it was like, oh my God, because you're looking around and you're looking at the stalls, and it was something else. It's on. People can watch it if they want. It's on the Arseblog YouTube channel, so we've got it up there. People can go and have a look at it. I mean, the football chat is kind of out of date because it was 3 or 4 weeks ago at this point. But just to give you a flavor of what it was like, it was it was fantastic, and hopefully we can do some more of those in the future and next season as well.
Right. Well, I love my Clive. Clive and I have been friends for quite a while. We've done a few podcasts together. And I asked him to send me something for you. So let me find it. And I'm going to play it. Hold on a second. And I'm going to come to your questions in a moment. I've got so much to ask you, Andrew. But at the end of the day, I want to get the questions in. So let's watch this.
Hey, mate. Hope you're well. This is Clive. And I have a question for you, Andrew. First one is, what do you think about the fact that Arsenal are potentially looking at a false line forward when a couple of our competitors are looking at or just bought tall forwards? Do you think we're suddenly out of fashion, or do you think this is the right direction to go? And as is my want, I've got another question in my mind, From a midfield perspective, do you think we need to add more technical ability or more physical ability? Just wonder what you're thinking. I hope you're well. Take care of the pair of you. Bye-bye.
I love my Clive. The voice. You two should do like CDs or something. Both your voices. I can't tell you which one's my favourite. I love them both. Thanks, Clive. So, Andrew, you're going to answer question 1 about the false 9 forward and then the midfield.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say I would like somebody with a bit more physical presence in the squad up front. I think that would be useful for us. I mean, look, you don't just want to bring in a guy because he's tall or because he's big. He's got to be good as well. That's the reality. And that might be the challenge, is to find somebody who ticks the physical box, but also ticks the quality box as well. But I do think that if we had that other striker, a second striker who can give us something a little bit different from what we hope Gabriel Jesus will bring when he joins, and also Eddie Nketiah, who I think is going to be our number 2 striker next season, I would be quite interested in it. And I think you have to look at what the other teams are doing as well a little bit, because City have brought in Haaland. Nunez has gone to Liverpool. Now, he's not quite the same, but he's still 6'1". He's not a 5'9", 5'10" guy. Tottenham have their big center forward, who's much as we don't like him, he's a big guy, which makes it, more painful for him, I think, when he falls to the floor doing his diving. But that's another thing. Chelsea have got Lukaku, and they've got some presence up there as well. And I do wonder if maybe it is something that we need to consider. So I'm quite curious. I'm not necessarily expecting it, but I would certainly be open to that if the club could find the right player. As for the second question about midfield, it was, do we need more technical ability or do we need more physicality?
Yeah.
I think we need more craft, more creativity. I know Clive would really like a strong runner in the center of midfield. But a
nice Patrick Vieira, Andrew.
Yeah, but look, wouldn't we all like a nice Patrick Vieira if we could get one? People have been trying to find a new Patrick Vieira for a long time, and I don't think that they ever will. So that's a fool's errand, really. I do like the idea of Tielemans coming in, because I think he is a very clever player, very creative, and I think we're looking to change the attacking profile of the team this summer by bringing in a new striker, by bringing in a more creative midfielder to play, I assume, where Granit Xhaka played, last season, in that sort of slightly advanced central midfield role. So if you can combine the physicality with the creativity, great. But I do think the creativity is a bit more important in my mind anyway than the physicality. So I hope that answers questions.
Yeah, bless him. Love my Clive. I keep asking him to come on, Andrew, have a word. He says he does too many pods and he thinks people are fed up listening to him. I love listening to Clive.
I'm sure he'll do it in the end.
I know he will. I'll have another word with him. Okay, so I just want to do a quick answers. Best and worst moment as an Arsenal fan?
Best and worst moment. Is that like one moment combined?
Or it could be
separate ones. I mean, you could nearly combine a best worst moment in the Champions League final in 2006, because it was just such an amazing thing to get there. And even though we lost, I remember being in the stadium afterwards, and that sea of yellow and the support that the team got despite the fact we'd lost was kind of, even now it's got the hairs on the back of my neck going up. What's the best? Look, I wasn't at Anfield '89. I watched it on TV on a Friday night in Ireland. That was an incredible achievement to win the title in that way. I think it's been so important for the football club in the subsequent years. You know, would we have gone on to do the things that we did afterwards if we hadn't been able to win the title that year, if we hadn't damaged Liverpool? So even though it wasn't one I experienced personally, and there were loads of things that, you know, obviously have happened since that, you know, the Invincible season as well is another just incredible thing to consider. I do think Anfield 89 is sort of like, you know, when you go to Blackpool and you get a stick of rock and there's a word all the way through the stick of rock. I think Anfield 89 for Arsenal fans of a certain vintage is that's the writing in the stick of rock that goes all the way through, because it meant so much. And it was 18 years since Arsenal had won the league title. And, you know, after that, we won it in 91. We should have gone unbeaten in 91 with the European trophy in 94, the 2 cups in 93, Arsene Wenger then coming in and doing what he did. And I think all of that was not just because of Anfield 89, but I'm not sure those things would have happened without it.
Interesting. Look how old you're going to now feel. Look at this. Paul Nell. I wasn't alive in 89. I was behind the goal in 89, Paul. I was, oh God, I always get this wrong. Nearly 19. You're making us feel old. Okay, so a quick one as well. You haven't told me your words. Oh, so sorry, the Champions League final. Yeah. So Andrew, I've never been to a away game in Europe ever, apart from the Champions League final.
Right.
So it's the only one I've ever been to. There are many reasons why I won't go. Financial, and then I hear the stories about the police, and I just couldn't handle it. So, but of course I had to go to that. I actually went to Anfield and believed, well, no chance could we win. When I went there and Sol Campbell did what Sol Campbell did and we scored, I was like, we could actually win this. More for me to even think that. But yeah, it was the only game I'd ever been to. Right, so a quick one. Best manager, George Graham, Arsene Wenger for you?
I mean, I think it has to be Arsene Wenger. I mean, I love George. You know, what he did in 89, 91. I think, you know, that team was underrated. I think he gets a bum rap sometimes, George, because of some of the football that we played later in his tenure, but we were really good in 91, played some incredible football, 1 game away from being unbeaten. But I think Arsene Wenger transformed the club in a way that George didn't or couldn't. I'm not saying he couldn't have done it, but I just don't know that the circumstances were there. You know, the Premier League was still a new thing. And so I think, you know, Arsene coming in, the 2 doubles, the Invincible season, the training ground, the stadium, and some of the football that we played under him was just incredible. I mean, he gave me certainly the best Arsenal team I've ever seen in my life. And I'll always be grateful for that. But obviously, you know, what George Graham did was incredible too, you know, to get that young team over the line at Anfield and to win it in 91, got us a European trophy as well. So it's a tough one. You know, people's mileage might vary on that, but for me, I'll go for Arsene.
Okay, I'm stuck. If I'm honest,
you don't have to choose, though.
I know I can't.
You don't have to choose.
Because I think George Graham started it and Wenger, funny enough, finished it. But right, so let's come to the questions. There's so many, right? Carl Stark wants to know. Thank you, Carl, for your question. How many players does Andrew think we need to sign this window?
I think we need to sign at least 3, maybe 4. Possibly more, depending on what might happen with some of the others. We've got a short squad, a small squad, and we need to boost that squad. It's got to be good enough and deep enough to be able to cope with the Premier League, to be able to cope with Europe, to be able to cope with the cups, and hopefully we can go further in the cups. So I think we need, maybe 4, possibly 5. But again, it will depend who leaves. Or if anyone is going to leave. You know, there's some question marks, let's say, over Nuno Tavares, for example. If he goes out on loan, we need a left back then, So there are deals that we might have to do depending on who goes, if other people go. But like, we need to add quality to this team. We don't necessarily need to add squad players. I think we need to add players who are capable of starting. And I think Gabriel Jesus is one. Tielemans is another who will come in. Very interesting links to someone like Rafinha, who again would be in one way competing with Bukayo Saka for the right-hand side. And that's, people might say, well, that doesn't really work. But I think the more starting quality players you have, the more able you are to cope with the demands of a season. The drop off isn't too big. We saw that a bit last season when I think we missed some key players, and the players that we had to replace them, the gap was too big. So more quality, more than quantity, but obviously we need to get the numbers as well.
So it's gone quiet on Pepe at the moment, isn't it? Do we think he's going to stay?
No, I would be very surprised if he was staying, because he doesn't play anymore. He needs to go and play. I think it's a really complicated situation because he arrived for big money. He's probably on very big wages. It's going to be difficult for any club in Europe to put up the kind of money that Arsenal might want to get for him, to pay off some of that transfer fee, because we still owe Lille some of that money, and also take on those wages. So it might be one that drags out, but I don't expect him to be an Arsenal player next season.
No. And Carl's following up with another question, statement. Departures are as important as purchases this window. Need to maximise the cash we can get for players in this.
Yeah.
The thing is, and I agree with that, the thing is, this is his window now. This is it for me. Okay, Andrew? I have supported him since day one. I fight his corner every single week. Does he make mistakes? Of course he does. Every manager does. He's not a robot. He's not perfect. Is he learning on the job? Yes. And sometimes, unfortunately for us. But I've said it 18 months ago, we've got to give him a chance. He came in during COVID and everything, was topsy-turvy in life, let alone in football. And someone said to me last year, how long are you going to give him? How long? Well, I said, I want to see improvement this year. Well, we're back in Europe. Should we have got fourth? I think we would have overachieved to get it. It was there and we could have had it. But as you say, the players that came in were not as good as the players that unfortunately were on the sidelines injured. And I've said all along, this summer transfer window is where it all counts, because I will give him till next season. But if we go again and we're 5th and 6th, we need to see a little bit more improvement. And we need to see, January was a big thing. And a lot of people still go on about this. The fact that Aubameyang left, but he wasn't doing anything for the team anyway. And his discipline was awful. Obviously clashed with Arteta and that was it. But we didn't replace, did we? And you had Lacazette, who I adore, but didn't put the ball in the back of the net. And hence our scoring problems. For me, striker is number one. So Jesus, massive talk, City boy, worked with Arteta. What's your take on that?
I think he'd be a good player for us. I think he's 25, he's hugely experienced, he scores lots of goals. He's versatile as well, in that he can play centrally and he can play wide, which might just leave the door open for the tall striker maybe that Clive was referring to. I think it'd be a great deal for us. When you look at the prices that are being quoted for strikers this summer, it's absolutely off the charts, the money that you got to spend to get a good striker. So it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because he does have that connection. He does have that connection with Arteta. He knows that he can come to Arsenal and be, in some ways, the main man, so I'm hopeful that one will go through. I think it'll be a smart purchase. He's a good player. He'd add a lot of intensity to our forward play as well. He's very, very good in the channels. He presses very well. I think that's part of what we're going to try and do next season also, is be more of a pressing team. And I think he gives us that too. So I'm keeping fingers crossed that one happens.
And one other thing he gives us, Champions League experience, Premier League winner, big club. whether they bought the title or not, where anyone thinks that, they're a big club in the world now, and he won't be scared, and he will be able to lead that team. And I'm with you on this. When the rumours started, as I said, and everyone knows I don't do rumours, but I could see this, and I literally within seconds messaged all my match going City mates and said, they love him, and they said they would sad to see him go. He doesn't score enough. And I went, oh my God, I don't want him. If he doesn't score enough, I don't want him. I said, because we need someone to put the ball in the back of the net. And they said, no, I think he'd be brilliant for you lot. He's rated up there. So let's hope. So, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Tielemans seems like it's quite positive that he's coming as well. It's interesting. There was something about Serie A. Hi, Christian. Welcome to the show. Do you think that Serie A teams will be heavily impacted by the FA scrapping loan extensions? I didn't know there were scrapping loan extensions, but anyway.
What exactly does that mean? I don't quite know what that means.
No. Will they be impacted? I suppose once they're on loan, they have to come back. They can't be extended. I don't know. I am sorry. I thought you might know.
No.
Right. Robert's got a statement. I'm not sure about top four. I think our best chance is Europa League. I just have that feeling. I thought that. It was interesting because I had Stuart McFarlane, Arsenal's photographer, on. And great news, people. He's coming back. He's true to his word. He said, I'll come back at the end of the, in the close season. And he's coming back. He'll be on my next show. And you can't have someone more closer to Arteta and the players than Stuart.
Yeah.
He even said he came on just before during the injury to Partey and Tierney. He said, I think we won't. I'm sure he said, and I know I'll be quoted because it is on the YouTube. He thinks that we won't hit top four. We'll just miss it. That was when he's a couple of months back. And I agree. At the time, I was like that, but then we were so close, and obviously we didn't. But we need top players, don't we? Enough already with the squad players. We can't do it this season. We can't do it. Right. Okay, so that's interesting. Robert Seagal, welcome again to the show. My business partners are City season ticket holders. They said they prefer to keep Jesus than Sterling.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's got a year left on his contract, Gabriel Jesus. So I think City are probably in a position where, they're going to sell. They brought in Haaland. He'll know that his playing time there is a little bit going to be impacted by that. Obviously, when you bring in a guy like that, he is going to be the main man at Man City. So, I'm sure he would have preferred to come to an Arsenal side that was going to be in the Champions League next season, and we would have all preferred to be that club for him as well, and for all of us too. But it is what it is, and I'm hopeful, that the groundwork that we hear about, all these months of discussions behind the scenes with the player, will mean that he chooses Arsenal. He's convinced by not just what we can give him now, but what kind of club and what kind of team he can be part of, because I think that is an important aspect of it. Is when you are talking, as you said, about a guy with loads of Champions League experience, you are talking about a guy with loads of Premier League medals to his name, regardless of the fact that they're City and we know that there's a special circumstance. Those are things that you want to have more of when you're a footballer. When you've come to England, you've won trophies and medals, you don't just want to sit on those, you want more. And hopefully that is part of what he sees for himself at Arsenal, and Mikel Arteta and Edu have been able to convince him of, before this thing goes down. Fingers crossed.
I know. People are losing their absolute, can't say the word shite, because we haven't had any big signings. I do. It does make me laugh. I normally not stay away from Twitter, but I don't get involved in this during July time. Right. So he's explained it. So it means after a year loan, they can't make another extension. A clause will have to be made with an obligation to buy or an option to buy. Hence, this would be a problem for Italian clubs.
But didn't we have that? We just had the obligation with the Lucas Torreira thing where there was an option to buy, and they they went back on that option. Well, they didn't go back on the option. They offered us a much lower price for Lucas Torreira, and that deal has fallen through.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know if we're going to be loaning any players to Italy anyway this summer. Maybe Torreira, but I think again he's a guy with a year left on his deal, and I think they'll be looking to sell him.
Yeah. As Phil said, it's not silly season, it's Muppet season. I do love that. Oh my God, Andrew, 1 hour. Where the hell has it gone? Are you okay for a few more minutes if I can get a couple of questions? Or do you
Yeah,
have
I got 5 more minutes if that's
5
okay.
more minutes? That's fantastic. Anyone got any major questions before we say goodbye to Andrew? So sorry I didn't get your questions up at the beginning, but it's so great. I wanted to know all about how Andrew started, and it's just been incredible. If not, I can let you go now. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to ask you my one last questions. What are your aspirations for next season?
I would really, I know people don't want to be in the Europa League, but I'd really like us to win it. And I know that like everyone has got their sights set on top 4, and I really want us to continue to make progress in the Premier League as well. But I feel like we're overdue a European trophy as a football club. We don't have enough European trophies to our name. For a club like Arsenal, it's a little bare, that particular cupboard. So I would really like us to go all the way and win that competition, because people will say, oh, it's only the Europa League, but I guarantee you, if we're in the Europa League final this time, or next year, every single Arsenal fan is going to be dying for us to win that game. And that's the reality of it. And we win a European trophy and we get back into the Champions League. But of course, we'd already be in there because we'll be finishing in the top 4 as well. So those are my aspirations. Whether we can get there, I'm not quite sure. But at the end of it, winning trophies is just the best thing about football. And even if it's not necessarily the trophy everyone wants, it's still really enjoyable when it happens.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask one last question. Carl
Sure.
Stark wants to know Andrew's favorite ever player, and on that, I'll get you out.
Ooh. I mean, my first hero was Liam Brady, obviously, but like I was a kid and I never really saw Liam Brady play for Arsenal apart from some cup finals, one of which was very famous and the other one was very disappointing. Actually, 2 in 1980 were very disappointing, 2 cup finals. I am going to say Robert Pires. I just loved Robert Pires, loved the swagger, loved the technique, loved the goals, loved the French, all of that. I just loved watching him play, So look, we've been very, very lucky to have some amazing players at Arsenal down the years, and I could go through a list and talk to you about Dennis Bergkamp. Steve Bold was one of my favorite players as well. I was always a central defender when I played football back in my youth. So I really loved Steve Bold. I mean, Tony Adams, an amazing captain, but I just like Steve Bold because he was kind of like the silent assassin alongside the big, loud Tony Adams. Tony would be loud and Steve Bold would just cream somebody. So I love him. Cesc Fabregas, amazing players. But I'm going to say Robert Pires, and that can be our good night.
It is our good night. I've got other questions, but I'm not asking you now. Hopefully, if you've enjoyed it, maybe you'd like to come back one day.
Sure, no problem. No problem.
Love you. And as a present, you're going to follow me on Twitter. I mean,
sure.
What more can a girl want?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, Andrew, you've been amazing. Thank you so much. Guys in the chat room, you've been great. Your questions have been fantastic. I can see all the lovely comments in saying great show. Andrew saying thank you to you all as well. Please subscribe to the Same Old Arsenal channel. I'm going to do a few summer season and I'm hoping that we'll do a transfer show and I'll have a standing host because I'm just not interested. I do apologise. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Thank you, Andrew. Absolutely loved it.
Pleasure.
Guys, keep well. Apparently Friday in London's going to hit 34 degrees. So I hope we've all got some aircon. Be safe. Andrew, what a star you've been. Thank you so much. Everyone, good night. Always Arsenal. Always Arsenal.